Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a great start to your weekend. It's Sean with Paycheck to Portfolio. Today, I'm going to talk about from debt to dividends, how I use margin to replace my paycheck, and how that's part of my FIRE strategy. FIRE stands for Financially Independent Retire Early. If you're new to my channel, all of my W 2 income rolls into my brokerage account at E-Trade. I buy long-term growth stocks, closed-end funds such as Cornerstone, and high-yield funds that run a covered call or covered put strategy. And what that does is that buys me dividends or cash flow. And what's going to happen over time is those dividends are going to accumulate and cover all of my living expenses, which will set me free from a 9 to 5 job. We're all in the same rat race. We're tied to our jobs. We're taught to work till you're 65, retire, and then unfortunately, the average life expectancy is 76 or 77 years old, and then we die, right? And so, what I'm trying to do is to expedite retirement, not because I don't want to work, but because I want to work in the ways that I can contribute to my church, to take trips with my family, and just to live life and to leave a legacy. I'm going to do a quick portfolio update like I do on every video. Then I'm going to go through some tabs here and show you some specific tools. Looking at my net account value, I'm currently sitting at $134,407. You can see my unrealized gain is getting close to 15%. Friday, the market was down $865, but the neat thing is my dividends rolled in on Friday, my weekly dividends, which were over $800, which you can see right here. So you can see my dividends rolled in here, which basically covered that expense. You can see I'm fully living out of the brokerage. Here's some Etsy stuff my wife's buying. But here you can see the dividends rolled in and basically offset those Friday losses and produced cash for me. So let's look at the performance real quick here. So every video I show the performance, and I'll show the 1 year and 3 year performance here. So if you look at let's do 1 year first, then we'll go to 3 year. If you look at my 1 year performance, and I want to come down here so you can fully see the charts. If I can scroll here. So 1 year I'm sitting at 49.2% growth. S&P's at 16%, the Nasdaq's at 23%, the Dow's at 10.5%, the Russell's getting close to 7%. If you look at the 3 year performance, I'm basically at 87%. The S&P is at 55.6. The Nasdaq's at 71. The Dow's at 37, and the Russell's getting close to 19. So what this chart includes is the growth of the portfolio and any dividends received. It does not include cash added to the account. That's included on the historical tab, which I'm going to show you next. So in 3 years, the portfolio has grown almost 87% while I'm fully living out of the brokerage account. If you look at the historical value, I'll show you this 1 year chart just so you can see it. In 1 year, including living out of the account, this has grown $31,000. So last year at this time, basically, I was at a net account value, and my gross account value is much higher than that, but I was at a net account value of $103,298. Currently, I'm sitting at $134,392. So again, this one includes cash coming in, cash going out, and basically the net account value growing. So you can see, obviously, the stock market's not linear, but over time, the compounding effect is moving, all while providing for my living expenses. And I'm generating cash flow with the estimated income tab here on E-Trade. So if you look at the next 1 year, I'm projected to bring in about $50,000 of dividend income. The way that E-Trade calculates this is they take your last dividend, whether it's quarterly, monthly, or weekly, and they annualize that out over the next year. So you'll see this number ebb and flow with the last payments, but I need about $100,000 of living expenses to live free from corporate America. And you can see I'm about 50% of the way there. So every paycheck that comes in, every purchase of assets that I make get me a percentage or two closer to that freedom of living free from corporate America. So let's jump into the actual spreadsheet here. Okay, so I want to talk about just the concept of bad debt versus good debt or capital investment, and then apply that to compounding and how it works. Unfortunately, most of us in our country are taught how to be consumers. And I want to challenge myself and my viewers to think about how can we become business owners of our own finances and our own lives as opposed to consumers, right? And so typically we're taught about how to be consumers, and we accumulate bad debt such as credit cards, car loans on depreciating vehicles. We'll buy a truck for 50 or 60 or $70,000 these days, drive it off the lot, and it depreciates 10 grand or 20 grand on the spot. We'll go buy new furniture and we'll finance that. And in 5 years, you'll see that same piece of furniture at a yard sale for, $60 or $100. High interest personal loans, basically lifestyle inflation loans. And please never go get a payday loan, because that'll compound bad debt and bad interest and everything bad that you can think of. And please don't do that if you can avoid that. So flipping the script to capital investment, or quote unquote good debt, real estate, typically does the same thing that I'm trying to accomplish with my portfolio. It grows over time, it appreciates, you pay it down with each mortgage payment, and you can rent it out for cash flow, right? So it creates a good long-term investment. Dividend generating funds, like I'm talking about, very similar concept. It will grow in value over time if you're diversified well, and it will generate cash flow, and you build equity as you go. So this is margin used to buy income assets. So I'm buying investments that pay me 25, 30, 35% yields. They grow at 10, 15% conservatively. I'm using all of my W-2 income on the front end as opposed to investing 5 or 10% on the back end. And so I'm creating a business spread. So if I'm buying 25 or 30% income and I'm paying 8.44% margin, I'm creating a business spread on my own money and making those dollars work for me. Think of it as business tools or business software that's generating cash flow for you, or buying a cash flowing business, right? Whether it's a laundromat, whether it's a startup business to where you're investing in it and it's producing cash flow for you over time. So this is investments that grow. Again, shifting the mindset from consumer to business owner. And then you take into account the compounding of those investments. So you want to avoid consumer debt. And again, here I'm talking about my W-2 and margin to build assets. So my W-2 comes in, I'm fully investing that W-2 income. What my dividends don't cover, margin is bridging the gap for me. And then over time, that compounding is taking effect for me. So I'm doing that by reinvesting long-term growth stocks such as S&P 500 growth, McDonald's, I own Costco and others. And then I'm dripping my closed-end funds and reinvesting those as well at the NAV, which stands for net asset value. I'm going to talk about that next week. I'm going to drop a Wednesday video. Typically, I've been doing Saturday videos, but I'm getting a lot of questions around how to play Cornerstone around its rights offering. So I'm going to touch on that in detail on my next video. So these drip at the NAV rather on those funds, which produce basically free money every month. Okay. Again, my W-2 is fully invested and I'm utilizing that margin to bridge. I'm buying high yield ETFs to pay the margin interest and the expenses, which I'll show you in the July tab below. And so this is going to accumulate the cash flow that snowballs and covers my lifestyle and creates a financially independent retire early scenario for me. Okay. So I want to talk about July just to show you, and I'm going to show you really quick where I get this on E-Trade, just so you can see. I try to be as transparent as possible, just so you can see everything I'm looking at. If you go to transactions and you just click all, it'll show you everything that you've done. That's where I'm pulling my dividends from. So if you go all dividends here, last 30 days, if you just run July here, is basically what I did for the Excel file I'm getting ready to show you. And if you hit apply, it'll pull up all of your dividends for that month, which you can see here. Okay, this is where I'm pulling all of the dividends basically. And these are all trades, but if you hit all dividends, you get the point. I'm just going to do it so you can see it. I want you to see how it works fully. And so here you can see all the dividends. Okay. So what I've done is I've exported that. You can see all my dividends tagged. You can see my margin interest, but I'm going to go down to the bottom and we'll talk about this. All right. So if you look at all my dividends right here in the green, okay, you can see some of them are reinvested right here. So I had my Cornerstone dividends come in, then they were reinvested. Okay. You can see that it was dripped at the NAV, which was the net asset value here versus its actual value. I do the same thing with Goff right here. This was reinvested. It drips at a 5% NAV discount. Okay. So when you take everything up here, I have in red what my margin cost me for the month. So I paid $900 in interest and I brought in plenty of dividend income. Okay. 3176 total right here. So if you look at the ROI, I brought in $3,176 worth of dividends. I paid $900 in interest. If you look at those dividends by themselves, that's a 253% return on debt, essentially. So I'm taking those dollars, I'm investing them, and I'm generating a business spread on that. And at the end of the day, even with my reinvested dividends, I still had a positive cash flow after reinvestment and after interest of $1,543. So each month I'm going to compound that and it's going to grow and it's going to get me another percent or 2% closer to freedom, which I show in the E-Trade estimated income tab. And I'm going to show that one more time just so you can see it. The estimated income tab is right here. So every paycheck that comes in, every dividend that grows gets me one step closer to financial freedom. A lot of people talk about NAV erosion of these funds. I'm going to be honest. Does the NAV erode? Is the upside capped in some cases? Yes. But is that fully understanding the return on investment? No. If you go to Morningstar and you look at some of these covered call ETFs, feel free to type this in on your own. You can take any of these covered call funds, such as QQQI, and Morningstar, if you click the performance, it'll take into account its dividends paid and any growth. And you can see QQQI, which is a covered call ETF with NEOS, is actually outperforming the index. Okay. If you look at NVIDIA, just as an example with Yield Max, okay, and you do the same thing, if you would have invested 10,000 in NVIDIA with distributions, it would come out to almost $37,000, and the index is at 16 here in this case. So does the fund erode on paper? Yes, to some extent. You have to add back your dividends to see your return on investment, just like a business would, right? A business isn't just going to calculate its expenses. It's also going to add back in its revenue. And then at the end of the day, you're going to see your net income or your return on investment. However you want to look at that, you can look at that. If you want to reach out to me, you can. I have multiple resources. I have a white glove service. If you want shoulder to shoulder conversation and strategy sessions, I offer that. We also have a Discord membership, which is very active and very engaged. We have tools in here. We have a new tool that we recently built where you can punch in your own numbers. It will actually grab dividend yields from the web and update these. You can click on which dripped versus what's not dripped. You can put your own margin interest rate in here, and it will spit out your 5-year plan and what it would look like from a compounding perspective for you. So you can see all of my resources. I have some resources, a starter kit to get you going, multiple resources out there. I'll have those in the pinned comments. Please reach out to me. I'm really enjoying talking to everybody. Thank you so much for your support, and please like and subscribe if you find this information valuable. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll talk to everybody soon. Bye.